Yes. Can you tell us what this item is that you were holding in the photograph?
So this is a piece of engineering that I actually found amongst my father's possessions, probably a year after he passed away, which is in the last few years. And I was just taken by its kind of artistic beauty in terms of its shape and the curves that were very much part of engineering back then, at least. It seems to have a spirit level on it, so it was something to gauge the level of something. It has obviously the gradation for measuring things.
So this was the other, I think, item you were holding in the photograph?
Yeah, so this is a piece of work that was done by a former PhD student of mine called Sobia Kauser, of Pakistani origin in Bradford, when I was an academic in Bradford. And I took her on as a PhD student to work on a project involving pigment cells or melanocytes. And she was very interested in sculpture or in art, and she produced this representation of a melanocyte, these dendritic cells with the melanin granules outside, although they're in blue here, they'd be brown black in real life. And with and she has written on the back of it a very nice little kind of a thank you note, because it was the first time she really went, the first of her family to go to university, and I was very keen to develop her from a second-year undergraduate the whole way through to a postdoc level, and now she's a lecturer in her own right at the University of Bradford. So it's a nice kind of reflection of someone who's really blossomed herself.
Maybe introduce yourself.
So I'm Des Tobin. I'm Professor of Dermatological Sciences at UCD. I'm Director of the UCD Charles Institute of Dermatology, which is the only dedicated academic centre for skin research on the island of Ireland. So my job is to lead a bunch of scientists that are interested in understanding skin function in health and disease. And
how did you end up doing that now?
So my interest has always been in biology, not really in chemistry or engineering as such. So I'd be the kid that would bring in a nest that would fall off a tree with some broken eggshells into school to put on the nature table from a very early age. So I was very, very interested in the natural world.
So is that actually what a melanocyte, the structure and sort of shape of a melanocyte, a pigment cell?
Yes, broadly speaking, these cells can have immature forms and mature forms. So this would be more like a mature form, that full spider effect, whereas the immature form of it would be more round, like an egg-shaped structure.
Why is actually that shape?
So it's to communicate. Pigment cells derive from a part of the embryo called the neural crest, the same place where our neurons come from. So some people kind of lazily call them the neurons of the skin. And for all neurons, they have to have these dendrites, these kind of pathfinding communication cellular processes to both seek out what's around them, but also to communicate with other cells around them. So this dendritic format of the cell is very important for, kind of sentinel type cells.
So these are cells that contain pigment, this pigment called melanin.
Yeah.
Which is like the brown. It's a brown.
It's a brown-black melanin typically for most humans in the world, but in Ireland and Scotland, a few other places, we have a red-yellow melanin called pheomelanin, and that melanin is rather unstable, and that's the melanin that's associated with higher risk for skin cancer. Okay. That's why people with reddish hair would have a much higher risk of skin cancer and melanoma, because the melanin they produce is less efficient, really, compared to, say, African melanin or melanin in India.
And what is its function? What does it?
Its function is basically to detoxify the world around it by blocking or screening out the damaging photons from light, from UV light. But also melanin is like a sponge. It can bind toxins and drugs and loads of other nasties and encapsulate them and keep them away from the delicate parts of the cell.
So it's a part of our bodies, and it occurs in other places in nature that is actively interacting with light.
Absolutely. It's very much involved, well, stress of any kind. And of course, one of the big stress on terrestrial Earth is UV stress. But we see it the whole way. If people turn upside down a white button mushroom, they'll see the black gills underneath.
It's the same
it's made from melanin as well. And we see it in in all the cuttlefish will spray its predator with a sepia melanin to get the predator off its back. So it has defensive mechanisms. It has obviously coat color function in terms of camouflage in the animal in the mammal kingdom. So it's a very strong signal. All the colors we see amongst mammals largely have a basis in melanin.